Hey, Brian here. In this video, we're going to build this tabletop mounting system for an Epson Brightlink 695 projector. Now, my wife bought this unit for projecting patterns onto her sewing table for cutting, and she asked me if I could make her something that was easier to adjust and more stable than what she'd come up with. And I said, "Are you kidding?"
I can make that.
Here's the projector, and this is the mounting bracket she got for it. It's pretty cool. Articulating arms, clamps to the side of the table, allows her to position it where she wants. Height adjustment's difficult because this thing weighs a lot and you have to unscrew this and bring it up and down. But the biggest problem is that it jiggles. If she touches the table at all, it wiggles, and then the projected pattern is unstable. So we're going to look at a solution, a tabletop device. Basically looks like a bookcase and holds it up and allows us to scoot it around where we want and adjust the height.
Okay, before we get started, let's take a look at an overview of the project. There will be a base and a vertical element. For vertical adjustability, we will use two bottom mount drawer slides. A bridge plate and spacers attached to the slides will hold a base plate that matches the mounting holes of the projector. A locking mechanism will be provided to hold the vertical position. 3 threaded feet will be installed in the base for stability and to provide leveling and keystone correction. We'll mount the projector to the base plate with screws via the factory mounting holes. Vertical adjustment is made by holding up the projector with one hand, loosening the locking mechanism, repositioning the projector, then tightening the locking mechanism. This will increase and decrease the projected image size. Keystone correction is made by turning the leveling feet one at a time. Now, an improvement to the design is to add a power feed mechanism consisting of a reversible motor with associated wiring and switching, a threaded lead screw, and a nut attached to the bridge plate. Operation is simplified by not having to hold up the projector for adjustment, but this is definitely a more advanced element of the project. When I build something, I try to repurpose as much stuff as I can. So, we will see what we can find laying around the shop that we can use. The actual device will be a bit of a design build as the project unfolds. Now, on to the build.
I've been saving this old TV bracket, came out of the motorhome, designed to slide the TV in and out, hoping to find some good use for it.
Okay, I think we can use this for our vertical adjusting rails. Now let's look at the mounting bracket.
We're going to need to build a plate. So I've created this mock-up plate here, which we're going to use to pick off the dimensions of those holes, because they're all in kind of a odd pattern. They're not evenly patterned out. So we're going to make up some threaded devices to stick in there with points on them, and then we'll tap on there with our template and pick up the hole pattern.
It should be noted here that the current mounting method using this bracket is incorrect. The 3 large holes are intended for feet as shown here on the mounting instructions for the unit. For vertical mounting, as in this project, these 4 smaller holes are to be used. The 5th hole is to be included in ceiling mounting and is optional for the vertical mount, as in this application.
Okay, so I took some spare screws and little short ones and ground a point on them. Just put 3 in for now, and we'll use that to head up there and then press on those and mark them. We won't be pounding on it because we don't want to damage that, but we'll push on that and then we'll mark those 3 holes, drill out those 3 holes, and then put it back on there, move these guys over, and pick up the other 2. Since there's 5 of them, you wouldn't be able to make contact with all 5 of them at once. So just do 3, drill the holes, and pick up the other 2. Now these are M8 screws, so that's a 532 hole. So I drilled those 3 holes out that we marked, and now I've moved the other 2 pin points in the back to the other 2 screws that I haven't used yet. And now we've lined it up, and we'll push on those 2, mark them, and drill out the remaining 2 holes. I've got this old piece of plate steel from a back box from a control panel. Looks like it's going to be suitable for the backing plate, which is going to look something like that. Used the pattern to lay out the steel for cutting with the Sawzall. Managed to miss most of the holes here. Got a couple little inclusions there, but should be pretty good. Now we're going to use the template to transfer punch the test fit. Looks pretty good. This one is off just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and punch these out to the next size up, 64th up, and there's still plenty of room there as far as these are concerned. This screw is optional, only required for ceiling mount. These 4 are required for wall mount, but I'm going to go ahead and use it anyway. So we'll just punch these out and then we should be good to go. After thinking it through a bit and doing a little bit of mock-up, I don't think I have the verticals I'm going to need, so I went and got these erector set type channels and some L brackets. Going to tinker toy bolt this thing together. These are the feet we're going to use, 1/4 inch. We'll see if we can make that work. We'll be using these corner braces to hold up the verticals of the erector set. So we'll have to drill the holes out a little bit to match up with these. All right, there we are with the braces attached to the verticals. The slider attached to the vertical rails. Now obviously you may not have this TV stand laying around, but you can buy these same drawer rails that work like that. Make your own. I'm going to use this 3/4 inch MDF that I've had laying around. It's some old shelves that I tore out of something. And got these feet, 5/16 thread. And got those at the local hardware store. They're not in the big box store. And then they've got these T-nuts that go, you drill out and pound them into the MDF and put the feet through there. So our next step is to mount the mounting bracket to the upper sliding device here. And I've got some old TV mounting brackets from a kit that's left over, but you could use a block of wood or anything like that. Just make sure that the pattern that you use here does not interfere with those 5 mounting screws that go in through there. Now I'm going to use a countersinking screw to go through those like that, because there's areas where this touches the projector that have no clearance. So you could use some screw-headed bolts for some of them, but I'm just going to use countersink for all of them. So we're going to lay out where these go first, drill them out of this thing, and then I'll transfer them over to this plate. And in the end, we'll have 4 holes here, countersink on this side, and then through bolt through those standoffs onto the bracket. The next consideration is we're going to need a clamping system to hold this thing in position once it gets where it's going. So we're going to put some skid plates in here. That's about 7/8 of an inch. And then we'll use some sort of a crossing bar. Now these aren't what I'm going to use. These are just showing the idea here that there'll be 2 skid plates here and then some clamping plate that goes down, and then when you get in position, tighten it up. All right, so I used oak there, and the brake pads are in position. And now I need a clamping plate. This is the relay rail out of the control box that I got the steel out of for the back plate. We'll try to reuse it for the clamp down plate on the back here. All right, there's the locking plate. Drilled a couple of holes in the back plate there. Use small thread pegs and a couple of screws, and then a locking knob. Now I only have one of those right now, so that's all they had at the hardware store, so I'll use a wing nut on one side temporarily. All right, we got the clamping mechanism in place. As mentioned earlier, I only have one of these knobs right now, so I temporarily put a wing nut on here. Raise it in position. Tighten her up. Now we're ready to test fit it with the projector. All right, here we are with the dry fit. Put these M4 Allen wrench screws in the back side there. Access them with an Allen wrench. And once mounted, seems to work pretty good. Slide it up into position. Tighten down your clamp. And then wiggle it. Looks very stable. I think we got a keeper. All right, I think our design and construction worked out quite well. Mounting plate works really good. Little bit tight back here getting the screws in, but not a problem. And we only have to do it one time. The adjustment and clamping system works as designed. Move it in any position and clamp it in place. It also was very stable when I wiggled it, so I think we're going to be good there. I added this top plate here just to make it look a little more finished and cover up those sharp edges on the metal. Now I'm pretty happy with this design, but it's manual operation. And Tim the Toolman Taylor would not approve of this design if it didn't have more power. So we're going to add a power feed option. For the power feed option, I'm hoping to repurpose this cordless screwdriver that the battery's gone bad in, but I think the motor's still good. And I'm going to use it to drive this piece of 3/8 inch all thread as a lead screw. So let's take this thing apart and see if we can make it work. All right, that disassembled to a nice compact unit. There's the motor leads we'll connect to. Now I tested it with the charging cord that came with it, but of course that won't work because it's more of a trickle charge for the batteries. It's 5 volts. So I went to the local junk store that we have around here, which is a really cool place. They've got a lot of used stuff. And this was even marked with 4 amps on it, which will power that nicely. Now, we need to go cut a hex on this lead screw so it can be powered by it. Well, as luck would have it, there's a couple of handy mounting holes right in there that a number 6 screw will fit through. So I'm going to fabricate this bracket to hold on to the motor. I'm going to make it out of some black plastic I have, but that could easily be made out of some hardwood like oak. Here's the final motor mount. We're going to need a lead screw nut as well to attach to the backing plate. Going to make that out of some black plastic as well. Okay, I think we're ready for final assembly. Let's review the parts we've developed here. So the base is a piece of 3/4 inch MDF. It's 14 by 16 and a half. Ended up final dimensions. You could use a 3/4 inch plywood as well. 3 holes drilled for the feet. The 5/16 T-nut there is pushed in from behind. And then we have these 5/16 inch feet, which have a slot in there for a screwdriver. I think, though, I'm going to probably develop a knob for that later on so that she can twist it with her fingers rather than using a screwdriver. That's what those were. So the base is complete. Some additional holes here are for the power option. These holes are for the vertical risers. Two vertical risers made from one 3-foot piece of angle plate steel right there, and then the corner braces, 4 of those 4-inch corner braces were used, and then I'll use an assortment of 5/16 bolts and nuts to do the final assembly when we put that together. Now the mounting bracket itself that holds up the projector, you don't have to use a metal plate. You could make it out of wood. We'll talk about options for the TV bracket here in a second. So this could be out of a variety of different materials, but the key is to make yourself a pattern because it is a rather odd screw pattern on the back of that thing. So develop yourself some kind of a backing plate to hold that thing up. And then you probably won't have a TV bracket like this laying around, I understand that. But you can use the same thing. These are slide drawers are available at the hardware store. You know, these are heavy duty, so I would get a pretty good heavy duty type. Looks like these are like a little over 2 inches wide there. The full travel of the projector's projection screen is 10 inches, so that's how much distance you're going to need there. And then, of course, you'll have to drill all your holes to meet whatever requirements you have. Now, the clamping mechanism against the vertical riser metal plates is just a couple pieces of wood. And this doesn't have to be aluminum, but that's what I had, a piece of scrap around like that. And then these are available at the hardware store. They're 1/4 20 nuts with the handles on them. And they go in there like that to clamp it together. I have these offsets here because that will hold my mounting plate away from there. Then just for beauty and safety, I have this wood plate which will go on top of the vertical risers. Add a little bit of finished look, make it a little safer. So that's all you need for the mechanically operated one. Now I understand that the power operated one is certainly more advanced and you may not have some of this stuff laying around, but it might not be as difficult as you think. And there might be other ways you could do it. This is a 5-volt power supply I'll use to run it. This is the old drill motor that I tore apart, but you can get gear drive motors online on Amazon for pretty inexpensive. Probably the most challenging thing in the special tool was to mill the hex on the end of this thing so we can drive it. And also I made some special parts to mount it, and the lead screw hole there to mount to the back of the vertical riser to move it up and down. Double pole, double throw switch for momentary forward and reverse. Just got that on Amazon for pretty cheap. And then a variety of screws, nuts, and bolts. And I think that's it. So let's get this thing put together. And there's the assembled manual version. Now let's put together the power version. All right, for the wiring, I have this female jack that came out of the drill. I'm going to reuse that. Made a little bracket that'll hold it in place. And we have the double pole momentary switch here. And then this is the connector that fits that, which is different than what came with this old scrap power supply, so we'll have to solder that together, and then we'll have the pieces we need to put it in. So I had some problems with that connector. It didn't work. So I gotta go get another one. And so for now, I've just wire netted these together. I suppose it could stay that way permanently, but I'm gonna wanna get a connector in there. Easy enough later on. Now let's check out our switch. That works. I've got the switch and wiring in a way that I want it, so the switch will stay in that position. So if that's going backwards, we'll reverse the leads later. Now let's get the lead screw put in. All right, let's give it a test run. And luck would have it, I have the polarity right. So that looks pretty good. Now we'll find out how it works when we actually hang the projector on it, make sure it has enough load bearing capacity. But I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so here we are with the projector mounted. That went fairly well, a little more difficult than I would have liked it to be. A couple lessons learned is I would make the holes in the backing plate a little bit larger so you can get it lined up easier as you're getting these screws back in here, which are a little hard to get at. Also, I used button head Allen screws there, and instead I would use what's called a cap screw. It's got a little more bigger top on it with some grip on it that you could more easily get in there and get those things put in there. Also, I needed to, not for this one, but for the other screws, grind off the Allen wrench to be able to get in there and get those tightened up. But that's just due to the amount of clearance that's associated with that standoff plate. Okay, let's give this thing a go. All right, I'm going to call this a successful project. And here it is in action. What do you think of your new system?
I love it. Easy to calibrate.
Well, there you have it. Another successful project. I hope you found this video useful. And remember, in the wise words of Mr. Red Green, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy.